In this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how I quit my job and became a full-time producer. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a top 2% producer. I made my first 100k producing and I got over 127 million streams on the records that I produced. It took me years of grinding to get there, and I wished I had this information starting out, because if I did, it would have saved me years of trial and error. So with that being said, let's get right into the video. Alright, so in 2019 I was fresh out of school. I had just graduated and I started working in 9 to 5 like most people do. Now at this point, music was just a hobby and I didn't think it could be any more than that, because I was surrounded with the wrong type of people. Like, nobody I knew had ever made music production a full-time career, and whenever I told people that I wanted to make it my full-time career, it wasn't really anybody that took it seriously. Even when I told my friends, they said, yeah, that's good, anything can happen, but it wasn't really serious. And whenever I told my parents that, not because they weren't like supportive, they were always very supportive of me. However, as a parent, when your 20-year-old kid says, hey, I'm going to be a full-time music producer, they're going to be like, yeah, but when are you going to university? So for me, I just didn't realize that this was actually something that I could make a career from. However, I was doing a lot of scrolling online, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, and seeing other producers that already made it started to make me think that perhaps I can do this too. I would watch the interviews obsessively, actually, with Metro Boomin and just other producers in general who made it work. I would watch the Producer Grind podcast, and I just saw all of these people that made it work. However, in my mind, I still thought like, okay, maybe they can, but I can't. We're not from the same country. We don't have the same connections, whatever. But then a friend of mine, he was friends with a producer that was from the same city as me. He was just a couple of years older. But what this producer managed to do was to work with all of my favorite artists. He also, I think at that point, won a Grammy. So my friend took me to see him, and seeing somebody with a similar background as me, making moves, making it work, working with all of my favorite artists, and actually doing music as a full-time career made me realize that I can do that as well. If you're a producer who wants more help and you want more guidance on producing full-time, then I have this free community made for people like you. People here are selling beats, they're getting wins. I'm in here every day helping out for free. We're doing a free feedback call every week, and you're very welcome to join if you feel like this could be helpful. The link's going to be in the description. Now, the actual steps that I took was that the first thing I did was that I logged in with friends and friends of friends to gain reps and skill. So the reason I did that was because I wasn't that great yet, but I knew that I needed to get way better at making full songs and actually working with people. There was also a second reason for doing that, which was that I didn't know anybody. So I just needed somebody to work with to start building the foundation for what would then be my career. So that's why I started with friends by just hitting up all of my friends, but also asking the friends that didn't do music if they knew somebody who did. So I got friends of friends as well. Now what that did was that it gave me my first few very small releases with like 1,000 streams each. It also gave me skill, but even more importantly, what it did was that it actually gave me one release that now has over 6 million streams. And it's this song right here. And the reason that was important was because that one song gave me a lot of proof. Now, I thought that, okay, cool, I have one song, it's kind of streaming, it's kind of popping. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cold email all the biggest artists. And I sent this terrible email. And in this terrible email, which I sent to all the biggest artists, hey, I'm a producer from my city, I'm called AQ, I've been doing music since 2011. I produced this song and this song. Let me know if you're interested. Which is kind of hilarious. And you can guess if that worked or not. Like, obviously it didn't work. However, I did have enough proof to start getting small artists with bigger connections. So I leveraged the proof that I had to reach out to small artists who were connected to big artists by looking at who big artists follow on Instagram and then reaching out to those people. And the way I networked was by showing love through story reposts, comments, and personalized DMs. And that's one thing that I found, like, just sending these very generic messages like, yo, let's log in, let's work. It doesn't work because so many people get them all the time. However, by just being a cool person and just simply showing love without expecting anything back or going straight for, hey, let's work, I found that to work way better for me. So if I go to somebody's page and I see that they just posted a song, I might screenshot that song, post it on my story, tag them, and just do fire emojis. One thing that will go to their inbox, it will also open a spark for a conversation, but also it's just appreciated. Like, it's value in a sense. because you're just showing love and supporting other people. Then I'd also comment on people's posts, and most importantly, when I decided to DM, I would send personalized DMs. So I would look at their page, find something that I can mention in my first message, then I just send a personalized compliment. Here somebody had a placement, so congrats on the artist name placement. I've been listening to that song for days now, big up. A second example is this. So here I reached out to an artist, I said, bro, and then I mentioned the song, that's hard, reminds me of Peak Melodic Trap, nice work. As simple as that. I could then start a conversation with them and then from there see if it made sense to work or not. Now doing this, I locked in with a collective of small artists. However, these small artists were connected to bigger artists and other people in the industry. Here's one of the artists, for example, nothing crazy, nothing huge, but it was enough for me to start working with people and actually getting my music heard by the right people and getting in the right circles. And I locked in with these artists for about a year, and during that time I worked with a bunch of other small artists as well, just grinding away, making as many songs as possible. Now, at first, things were really slow, because sure, I was making songs, some of them were getting like 1 million streams here, 100k streams there, but I still wasn't getting paid enough to actually do this full time. And at first, this was a slow process, because this went on for a year, and I was almost about to give up at that point, because it was going so slow and I started to doubt myself and question myself whether I could actually do this or not. However, that's when, by working with these people, a manager heard of my stuff. He reached out for me to make a project. I worked with that manager for that project. It wasn't a huge project. It got like 4 million streams now, but I worked with him on that. And then that led to a big opportunity, because there was this pretty established rapper that was making an album. Then the manager was helping him to find beats for that album. And because I was already working with him on this other project and it was going well and I was doing a great job delivering great beats, because of that he then said, hey, I got this opportunity, why don't you make some beats for that? So I made the beats for that rapper. Then a couple months went by and I was still in the frame of mind of almost quitting. But a couple months went by and that's when the song dropped and I not only had a lead single, but it also charted at number 25 on the Spotify Top 50 charts. That was a huge moment for me. Not only was that proof that I could actually do this and I kept going, but what also happens is that when you have a record on the charts, artists start reaching out to you. So what I did was that I locked in with those artists, I worked with them, we made songs. So for the independent artists, I would go with 20% royalty cut on the master. And the reason I did that was because these artists were actually streaming. So I could actually make more money from doing that with some of them. Then, of course, 50-50 on the publishing, because 9 times out of 10, it was just me and the artist involved on the record. However, if there was anybody else, we would split it equally between everybody involved. Lastly, I would do 1.5 upfront minimum for signed artists. And after 6 months, that's when I made my first top 10 record. And after that, I made 8 more. And after that, things started running smoothly. And that's when I quit my job and I started producing full time. Now, the 3 big lessons I learned from doing this is that it's really possible if you just focus on the right things. If I just lock in with artists and make music for them, it will work. Like literally thousands of people have succeeded before me. If they can, why can't I? Then I also learned the importance of delivering great work to people and then using that work to kind of climb upwards and consistently get to the next step and the next step and the next step. And the last lesson I learned is to be patient. The work you do now will pay off 6 months later from now. So stay patient, stay in the game, and don't quit.